Good afternoon, everyone. This is Indrani here with you. Welcome to your favorite show, Immigration Law. As you know, in this show, we usually discuss about immigration law, visa processing procedure, as well as visa categories of several countries. Today, we want to discuss about immigration laws of Australia. For that, today we have Mr. Ray Turner with us from Australia. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
So welcome to the show, and now I want to start our discussion about immigration laws and visa categories of Australia.
Please, I hope I can help.
Thank you so much. Then what is an Australian skilled independent visa?
Well, an independent visa is for a person who has specific skills which Australia is targeting. We fall into two basic categories of people. They are professional people, doctors, lawyers, engineers, accountants, and then there are what we would call craftsmen, technicians, people with trades, people such as carpenters, chefs, nurses. Anything in the building and construction industry is certainly in high demand in Australia at the moment.
So how long can I stay in Australia with a skilled visa?
Well, if you get the skilled independent visa, you are a permanent resident from the moment you land. Now, permanent resident allows you to stay in Australia for the rest of your life.
Sir, we heard one thing, that with the Australian economy collapsing due to a shortage of foreign workers, the government has now taken steps to ease visa requirements for citizens of all countries. How accurate is this statement?
Broadly speaking, that would be correct. But really what the focus of that policy is on is where you are sponsored by an employer in Australia or a state in Australia. Now, of course, when you have those sponsorships, the first step is normally for a temporary visa for up to 4 years, but the government have announced that by the end of this year, for all people on those visas, there will be a pathway to permanent residence. Now, certainly the areas in chronic shortage in Australia, in aged care, in childcare, in hospitality, and in unskilled construction workers. Those are areas where Australia has a definite skills shortage, and that announcement you made there by the government, they are targeting those areas.
Exactly. Then is there any changes happen in this law?
Well, there will be changes. There have been changes announced, but they haven't been enacted yet. The government has said by the end of this year, all people on temporary skilled visas, they're the groups we're discussing, will have a pathway to permanent residence, whereas previously they have not had that pathway.
Okay, so could you let us know that the point-based system for skilled immigration?
Well, when you talked before about independent skilled migration, that is the one that's based on a point score. The points basically are for your age, your ability to speak English, your work experience and your qualifications.
So now can we talk about permanent residence in Australia?
Well, the skilled independent visas are permanent residents. Of course, if you are married to an Australian, then that's a pathway to permanent residence. If you have a temporary skilled visa, what is going to happen now is that every skilled temporary visa will provide a pathway to permanent residence.
Then what are the visa categories for permanent residents in Australia if anyone wants to go from Bangladesh?
If anyone wants to go from Bangladesh, very much they're looking at that point-scored independent visa. That some state sponsorships allow for permanent residence. Some employer relationships allow for permanent residence, but it very much depends on a case-by-case basis.
So can you please explain us the visa categories for permanent residents?
Well, as I've said, they are the skilled independent classes, and they are people on temporary visas who can go forward into permanent residence.
Could you please elaborate us the categories like a visit visa, spouse visa, and as we already discussed about skilled independent visa? Could you please elaborate?
Yes, well, of course, a partner visa is the easy one. You either are the spouse of an Australian or you're not. The skilled visas, people with high skills, good experience, and sponsored by an Australian, they can get permanent residence. Business people seeking to establish business in Australia can get permanent visas straight up. That's probably all the ones that get it automatically. Upon the visa, you are a permanent resident. The other ones depend upon you being sponsored into a skilled temporary visa, which becomes a permanent visa.
Then what are the fastest way to get permanent residence in Australia?
The quickest way would be for you to have an employer in Australia who wanted to sponsor you, and you had you were highly skilled and had experience in that skill.
What are the job opportunities for immigrants like people from Bangladesh in your country?
The big job opportunities are in aged care, childcare, construction, and hospitality.
Okay. Can you tell us about care visa? Caregiving visa. We heard that any people can go there for taking care of their grandparents or parents or some other people who are maybe sick or old in age.
They can be sponsored by a parent by a family member. It's not just parents, but a family member who needs care. The problem for people from Bangladesh applying for those visas, it can take up to 20 years to grant the visa. It's not realistic to apply from Bangladesh for that visa.
Thank you. Now we have a question from our audience. I'm already applying skilled immigration visa. Now my TRA is still in review. Last week I received an email from Australian government. Can you help me about my TRA email check? What is the definition of TRA?
TRA is Trades Recognition Australia.
Okay.
If you said you were a motor mechanic, you would have to prove to TRA that you were a motor mechanic.
Exactly. Thank you. Now we want to shift our discussion about a visitor visa. Are there different types of visitor visas available for Australia, and how do they differ in terms of purpose and any kind of requirements?
Yes. There are three types of visitor visas. The first is just a straight holiday visa. The second would be a visa to go to Australia to conduct business in Australia. And the third class would be to go to Australia to visit family. In all of those classes, the requirement is that you are a genuine visitor. Now, that focuses more on your reason to go back to Bangladesh than it does upon your reason to be in Australia. The sort of things you would need to show would be close family, staying in Bangladesh, assets in Bangladesh, property in Bangladesh, a job in Bangladesh, those sorts of things. So when you are applying for a visit visa, the real significance is your reason to return to Bangladesh, not your reason to go to Australia.
Suppose I have not visited in several countries, but I want to go to Australia as a first country that I want to visit. Is there any possibilities or any chances to get denied from the visa?
Well, yes, there are. If it's found you're not a genuine visitor. Someone in your position, firstly, you would show that you have employment in Bangladesh and they have given you a period of leave to travel. That would be very important. If you had a home in Bangladesh, that would be important. If you had close family in Bangladesh, that would be important. And of course, you need to show that you have sufficient funds for your time in Australia.
Can you please explain the term GTE? What is GTE?
Genuine temporary entry. That's what I've been talking about.
What is the GTE requirement for the visitor visa processing procedure?
Well, there's no strict requirements. It is, you have to convince the immigration officer that you are a genuine temporary entrant. And you do that, as I said, by having a job, having family, having a home, those sorts of things.
Thank you. Now we have another question from our audience that I have a query about the PR application based on 2 years of job and income tax. If someone suddenly loses her job after 2 years, is she eligible to apply for PR?
Yes, because it is a requirement to have those 2 years over the last 3 years. But it doesn't. The 2 years experience doesn't guarantee you the visa. But yes, if you've lost your job recently, that would not be fatal to an application.
So is it necessary to have a job contract or a valid sponsorship for that?
You need to show that you've had the job. Now, contract, taxation documents, letters from employers, those sorts of things prove that you have the job.
So now we have another question from our audience on a tourist or a visit visa. That is it possible that after getting tourist visa, can I apply for an Australian citizenship? It's a very common question from our country.
It has a very simple answer, no.
No. Thank you. Another question. My question, should I testify my documents first or I have to get a job offer first from Australia?
You don't have to get a job offer, but it is very much easier if you have a job offer.
Okay. Then what are the common reasons for visitor visa applications being denied in your experience, in your entire career?
The main reason visitor visas would be denied is because the person assessing the application doesn't believe that you are a genuine temporary entrant.
Then how can applicants increase their chances of a successful application for a visa?
What sort of visa?
A visit or skill visa.
Well, for a visit visa, you have to show that there are sufficient ties with Bangladesh that you will return. For the permanent resident skilled visa, you need to show that you have the skills, you have the qualifications, and you have the experience.
So how important is the role of immigration agent in a visitor visa application process, and what should applicants look for choosing one?
Well, you see, I'm not an agent. I'm a lawyer. We don't do a lot of visit visa applications, but because we are lawyers, we handle appeals against refused decisions. We do a lot of residence applications. The role of a lawyer or an agent is to make sure that all the requirements for the visa are met. And if I could give you an example by way of a partner visa, because this is probably the simplest example to give. If you simply fill out the application form and attach your marriage certificate, you will be rejected. You need to attach evidence of your relationship. The best evidence comes in a pram. The other evidence is joint bank accounts, joint ownership of properties, and those sorts of things.
Thank you, sir. Then what advice would you give to viewers about that?
It is important to have your application professionally handled. Now, there are thousands of lawyers and agents. Some are very good, some are not. I would recommend highly that people do their research. Google immigration lawyers, Australia or Sydney or whatever. Look at websites, look at reviews, because this is an important life decision that they're making, and it's important that it is professionally and properly handled.
Then what should applicants do if they have a history of previous visa denials or immigration-related issues in other countries?
Well, that, of course, makes it more difficult. So those people, more than most others, require very, very good professional advice.
Does they need to go through a punishment process in your Australian government?
No.
Okay, that's nice.
There's no banning. Every case has to be determined on its merits.
Then what is the process for addressing visa overstays or other unintentional violation of visa conditions?
I have a filing cabinet full of them. The fact that you have overstayed a visa or that you have violated conditions of a visa doesn't lead to automatic refusal, but it makes the case very much more difficult.
And then how can individuals rectify that situations?
Well, a period of good behaviour overcomes a period of bad behaviour. Family in Australia overcomes it. Australia very strongly adheres to the rights of the child. So if you had children who are Australian citizens, then you have a very much stronger case to overcome any wrongdoing of your own.
I have a common question from my side. That's suppose I'm unemployed. I don't have any kind of job experience in previous, but I'm married with a child. Can I apply for a permanent resident migration visa?
If you're married to an Australian,
no,
yes,
I'm not. Suppose I'm not.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, then, if that's the case, we would look at the skills and qualifications of the partner. Only one of the partners need to be eligible, and the visa extends to both partners and all children.
Okay, now I have a question from our audience. I'm from Kuwait. I'm working in cleaning company till 5 years. Now I'm interested to come into Australia. Can I apply any category visa?
It's extremely unlikely that you can.
I'm a central bank employee. I have government passport. Can I apply for Australian visit visa? And I was visited India and Saudi Arabia before. I'm additional director in the Central Bank of Bangladesh.
That would seem a strong application for a visit visa.
Okay. Could you please talk about parents visa or carrier visa?
The problems with parent visas are the time they take to be processed. Of recent times, an application for a contributory parent, which is a parent for which you pay some $50,000 to the government, will still take 12 years to approve. Without the $50,000, it will take 25 to 30 years to be approved. That is a problem with parents. The carers from overseas, they take 20 years to be approved.
For getting the permanent residence, how many times should I stay into your country?
It doesn't matter. People can gain permanent residence with never being in Australia.
So is there any system like a green card or, after staying there for 6 months or 1 year, can I apply for permanent residence or passport?
No, That's America. That's not Australia.
Australia, exactly. Then I know some of different rules in your country. Can you explain us for that?
Well, Australia doesn't have a green card. We don't have a lottery.
Okay.
You have to meet certain criteria to do, which we've been talking about, to do with skills, to do with qualifications. It's not a lottery.
Do you have any kind of special visa categories for a journalist, actress, dancer? I mean, people who are working on some, creative work platform.
If you are in the top category in the world, yes. If you are a producer of a show like this, yes, probably. That is an occupation which is on the list. That is an occupation which, subject to the other categories, you would be approved.
Then what are the procedure for applying?
Well, it's a normal skilled application. You would put in an expression of interest. If you then got an invitation from the Commonwealth or one of the states, you would do a visa application and it would hopefully be approved.
Okay, I have a question. I'll be starting my Master's in Laboratory Science at the University of Tasmania on the July. Am I eligible for 190 or 491 after my studies? So I have a question that, can you tell me first that what is the 190 or 491?
Okay, the 190 is an independent skilled application. The 491 would be a sponsorship from Tasmania.
Speaking of America, that if any child born there, they can apply for citizenship. Is there any kind of similar rules in Australia as well?
To be an Australian citizen, you need either to be born in Australia and have one parent at least who is an Australian permanent resident or citizen. If you are born overseas and one or both of your parents are Australian citizens, you can be an Australian citizen if they register your birth with the nearest Australian embassy. The mere fact of being born in Australia doesn't give you citizenship. If you're born in Australia and your parents are on a student visa, you get a student visa.
Okay, thank you. Suppose a child born there and after getting adult and after getting a job there, can he or she apply for their parents for permanent migration, permanent citizenship in Australia?
If they can become citizens, and they can become citizens if they live in Australia for the first 10 years of their life, yes, they can sponsor their parents.
How about citizenship by birth to non-resident or non-citizenship parents? We heard about 10-year rules. What's that?
Yes. If you live in Australia for the first 10 years of your life, on your 10th birthday, you are an Australian citizen. Before that, you get the same visa that your parents had.
I have another question from our audience. I'm 41-year-old having 3 years polytechnic diploma in electronics and communication after matric. After completing my school graduation, and working as a telecom engineer since 19 years in renowned Indian telecom company BSNL. What are my chances of Australian PR or work visa?
He or she would probably qualify for permanent residence. They could get a work visa if they have an employer in Australia.
Okay. I have another question. Once I get the permanent visa like 189, do I have to enter Australia right away, or can I just wait for some time, like 6 months or more?
The visa that you get will have a date on it. Somewhere between 3 to 6 months. You have to enter Australia by that date.
Let's talk about some driving license for immigrant people. If a Bangladeshi student goes to Australia with their previous Bangladeshi driving license, can they buy their own car with that license in your country?
Yes, they can.
So there is no issues over there?
Once they have established a residence in Australia, they should take out an Australian licence.
Okay. Suppose I'm a professional cricket player in Bangladesh and playing first-class cricket in my country. How a cricket player will be able to come to Australia, and how I will get the permanent resident?
Well, the answer is pretty simple. If you're a cricket player, if you can find a state in Australia that will sponsor you, yeah, you can come to Australia to play cricket.
Okay, but interestingly, even if I come there through a student visa, suppose I want to do my master's degree, is there any chance that will I become eligible to play cricket there?
Yes.
Wow, thank you so much. Okay, I am in 485 visa now and a standard overseas since last year. Will the government extend our visa, or will there be any alternative for those 485 visa holders whose visa got expired being stuck overseas?
We don't know about the changes the government's going to make. If they're on a 485 visa, that can be a pathway, but as I say, we don't know yet what the government's going to do with them.
Okay. I'm 25-year-old and I have completed B.Tech in civil engineering. I'm a fresher. My uncle is ready to sponsor me and he's an Australian citizen as well. Can I directly apply for PR from Bangladesh, or is there any possibility?
The fact that she has an uncle doesn't make any difference.
Okay. I came back to Australia in 2018 after 4 years on RRV. After the 5 years of my PR expired in 2015, is it true that I only need to stay for only 3 years before I apply for citizenship?
For citizenship, you need 4 years residence in Australia as a permanent resident.
Now, I want to interrupt that since 12 months is considered as legal absence.
No, 12 months isn't considered as legal absence. You need to spend 4 years in Australia and with your home in Australia. You can have short periods outside Australia, but they are short periods each year. It's not a period of 12 months.
Okay. Now I have another question from a pharmacist that I want to migrate with my wife who has just completed her honors. Can I proceed by myself, or should I take help from any kind of agency or lawyer who can help me through the information?
I would think they would need professional help, but if they are qualified pharmacists, then they fit within the usual categories.
Is there any different or separate visa categories for doctors, nurses, pharmacists? Is there any?
No, it is the one category of skilled independent migration.
Is it possible that after getting a tourist visa, maybe some people want to go there and some people to stay there for good? Is there any kind of possibility to get denied from a permanent visa?
Yes. There is a possibility.
Are there any circumstances under which a visitor visa might be extended or converted into a different visa type while staying in Australia?
There are possibilities, but it would be looked at on a case-by-case basis. It's unlikely that the visitor visa would be extended, but if they found an employer that was prepared to sponsor them, then they could stay longer.
So would you be able to help Bangladeshis?
Oh, yes. We act for people all around the world.
So if anyone wants to get helped by you, which procedure she or he needs to follow?
Well, they can simply look on our website and there's a facility there to request help.
So could you tell us about our show that we invited you for some important discussion, and I hope our audience got helped much from you.
I thank you for your perseverance.
Thank you so much. We need to finish the show, and once again I want to thank you very much, and we're very much grateful for your time.
Thank you everybody, and thank you for your questions.
Thank you so much. So everyone, that's all for today. See you on next episode. Till then, take care of yourself and stay updated.